The second scripture reading for us on this morning is coming to us from the Gospel of Matthew. It's continuing with that 8th chapter where we had started, but it's picking up with the 5th verse. When Jesus entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, appealing to him and saying, "Lord, my servant is lying at home paralyzed in terrible distress." And Jesus said to him, "I will come and cure him." The centurion answered, "Lord, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only speak the word, and my servant will be healed. For I also am a man under authority, with soldiers under me, and I say to one, 'Go,' and he goes, and to another, 'Come,' and he comes, and to my slave, 'Do this,' and the slave does it." When Jesus heard him, he was amazed and said to those who followed him, "Truly I tell you, in no one in Israel have I found such faith. I tell you, many will come from east and west and will eat with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, while the heirs of the kingdom will be thrown into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." And to the centurion Jesus said, "Go, let it be done for you according to your faith." And the servant was healed in that hour. May God's blessing rest upon the experiences of Scripture on this day. May it guide the meditations of our hearts and the words of my lips. Make note of the artwork on the front of the bulletin there. If you're looking at it, it's apparent who Jesus is. He's got a holy mark on him in this icon or in this mosaic, or however you want to look at it. And the disciples are standing to the left of Jesus, and the Roman centurion is standing to the right of Jesus. And Jesus is looking over his shoulder at the disciples and pointing at the centurion as if to say, "Can you believe this guy?" Now that image actually reflects more Luke's telling of this story. This is a story that appears in Matthew and Luke. It comes from what is called the Q source. Okay? So just in those two Gospels. And if we were to hold them up side by side, we would find that Luke tells us a lot more about what's going on. We learn a lot more about the centurion in Luke's Gospel. There's reasons why he is considered worthy of help. But Matthew's Gospel strips all of that extraneous stuff away. When the Gospel writers put their things together, there's a reason behind it. We don't just write things down and say things because we feel like writing things down and saying things. There's always some sort of drive. There's an impetus. It's not random thoughts. Matthew takes away a lot of what Luke gives us in this story to focus us on one particular, powerfully important thing. Faith. Faith. Now, in the Gospels in several places, Jesus will proclaim that your faith has made you well, or your faith has made you whole, or the faith of people who brought you in, those who busted the ceiling and dropped you down on your pallet when you were lame. The faith of the centurion. Faith is a powerful thing. Faith in Matthew, Mark, and Luke is the crack in the door that allows for the miracle to happen. John reverses that math a little bit, but in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, we have to have at least a mustard seed to make it possible for God to cause the great plant to grow. Faith is the thing. So in this story that takes place right after the Sermon on the Mount, got to remember the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus comes down from the mountain. The disciples are there. The newly appointed prophets who heard the sermon come down. We heal the leper. Yes, I choose to heal you. And the centurion comes and has faith. Now, I have to say, the centurion talks about issues of authority. We know a little bit about the Roman military model, or we should. And I would think in this neck of the woods, we have some sense of how sort of the military model works. That there is a chain of command. There are levels of authority. And I will say that I ended up in the disciples partly because I struggle with authority. I was raised Methodist, and the idea of a bishop telling me where to go without me being able to offer such advice in return seemed to be rather unkind. I have matured since then, but in the moment it was not my fit. And often we think of authority in this manner, the person who is over us that commands us. And this is what the centurion says. I am a person under authority. There's somebody above me who tells me what to do, and I do it. And I am in authority over others, and I tell them what to do, and they do it. The Roman soldier understands the hierarchy, and in this ancient worldview, hierarchy is very strong and very powerful understanding. And the centurion knows that Jesus has power and authority over the things of this creation. The centurion understands that Jesus has power and authority over the things of this creation. And so he approaches Jesus directly. And once again, Jesus chooses to heal. But in prepping for this sermon, there was something else that leapt out to me in this sense of authority. This focus on faith that Matthew brings us to. Because faith isn't, it's not a noun. We can say, I have faith, but it's not a noun. It's not actually something I can possess. Faith is an action. It's a verb. It's embodied in something or in some way. Faith is trust. When we bothered to show up this morning, we are trusting in something. I have a sneaky suspicion it's God, but maybe not. So faith is trust. A trust, in this case, in God and the authority of God as the ultimate author, creator of all things. So authority isn't just an issue of a power above, sort of controlling in some way, shape, or form. It is a trust of those who are under authority in that person or figure or divine grounding that exists beyond us. When the centurion approaches and says, I am a person under authority, he is saying, not only is there someone above me who tells me what to do, but there's someone above me that I trust in some way, shape, or form. Now, we know that humans sometimes trust can be an issue, trusting other humans. I have to say I'm a little suspect about people who are excited about putting me in the water. A little suspect. But the centurion and Jesus himself are talking about an ultimate authority that people are under, that we are under, and it is the authority of God and that trust that we place in God to be God. Jesus had just been talking about what that looks like in the Sermon on the Mount. What is the realm of God, the place that is under God's ultimate authority, going to look like? And then he comes down and he begins to enact it, or continues enacting it. What is this realm under God's authority going to look like? Well, lepers will be healed. Social outcasts will be healed. The awkward, the gangly, those who feel themselves ostracized by the rest of society will be healed. Not changed, mind you, in the sense that they will be made like everybody else, but they will be healed. The centurion can come and say, this one whom I love, the Greek word boy, girl, child, servant, it's sort of a strange word to use, but this one that I care for greatly is ill, and I trust that in God's realm they will be healed. And Jesus says, yep. We are a people under authority. Both in the life that we live today, we place our hands and our trust in others, and we exist under the authority of other bodies that have been created to help, ideally. But ultimately, we are a people under the authority of God. Not in the sense that God is moving us around like pieces on a chessboard, but in the sense that we are trusting in God fully to be God. Because when we trust in God fully to be God, that allows us to be church today in the best way possible. Thanks be to God, and amen.